Let's start then. I'll try to make this quick and also share a bit of our learnings. So as MR said, my name is Vinay Chandran. I'm a partner at Quantum Black, which is McKinsey's AI practice. And what I'll be covering today quickly is some of our learnings in terms of the adoption of generative AI in the GCC. So I know there was a comment made earlier about consultants. So what I'll try to avoid is some of the perspectives based on PowerPoint, but also based on some of the implementations we've done in the region. So just a bit of background. Quantum Black does a lot of work with institutions in the region around AI. And one of the big challenges we find is the question around, does it really drive value? And so what we try to focus our research on is specifically on the generative AI component, where there's a lot of hype in the market today, given all the investments being made, but little to show in terms of returns. And what we wanted to understand was, what's the state in the GCC? What are some of the learnings that we are seeing which is either unique to the GCC or common across other parts of the world? And this was a report that was commissioned based on a global survey that we did, which we tailored to the GCC. Now, this is the first question that I typically ask my clients in the region here is, what do you do with generative AI? What's your stance? And so, if you guys have obviously, hopefully seen the matrix, you would understand the question around, do you take the blue pill or the red pill? Do you watch at a distance and look at all these investments being made and say, let me play this movie out a bit and invest wisely by not making the failures that the early promoters would do? The frank answer for us, actually, what we found is there is no red pill. A lot of the institutions that we've been serving, the large institutions, incumbents, have been disrupted within several parts of their domains by the application of generative AI. So what do they do? So what we tried to cover was a couple of things. So one I'll try to tell a few facts. One fact is around, what's the value of generative AI? I know there was a bunch of startups here earlier in the day. So one key metric is, what's the value that you can realize through the application of AI? So if you're a startup that's actually looking to automate the corporate functions of an enterprise or help the customer care attract more revenues by providing hyper-personalized services, what we found is a significant value both in the generative AI space within the GCC as well as more broadly within AI. So that's around 10% of the GDP, if you think about it in KSA, which value can be unlocked by institutions in the region. So what we did was, to commission the report, we worked with the Board Directors Institute. Essentially, it's an organization in the GCC which actually helps board members across the GCC understand what are the implications of various technology trends. And we surveyed around 140 institutions within the GCC to understand where they stand. Couple of facts to come out. One, 70% of the impact through the application of generative AI is around 4 sectors. Surprise, surprise, energy and materials, which isn't so much of a surprise because that's a big contribution of GDP here in the region. But what we also found was there's a lot of sectors around social, healthcare and public sector where the government does a significant push in the region where Gen AI can have a significant contribution. And and obviously in capital projects and infrastructure was another area where we saw a lot of value to be had. One interesting fact that we did find was, given this point, I think MR's or the previous panel were talking about in terms of the centralization and the big plays that, for example, the Abu Dhabi is doing as well as Saudi, there's a significant adoption of AI, or a higher rate of adoption relative to other markets. We've done the survey in the US, we've done the survey in Europe. What we found was, if you looked at point application adoptions of AI in the region, there's a 10% gap. And that's 10% ahead the region in terms of adoption of AI, which was interesting. We were coming into the research, we didn't think that's going to be possible. Or that would be the fact that we came out with. Now, the question then is, does adoption really matter? Right? I know a bunch of you took flights coming in for this survey, for this conference. There are too many pilots when you think of AI. Too many proof of concepts that are done in institutions, both globally as well as in the region. and unfortunately they don't realize value. And there's a bunch of challenges. Some people talked about talent in the previous discussions. There's a point around technology taking a front seat versus business objectives and changing processes. So we found a few challenges as it related to institutions in the region failing to realize value through AI. While pilots worked, at scale realization of value was limited. So what we found, however, was, and I'll try to close with two thoughts. One was around 7% of institutions in the region have started realizing value. And we call them value realizers. Essentially, these are institutions that have applied AI at more than one business function. So you think of it like you've applied it in marketing, you've applied it in software development, and various other functions. Second, they are able to attribute at least 5% of their EBIT towards AI. There's a question on how do you attribute it, but that's the second pillar. Third is they've built a moat, which is either through proprietary models that they've built or technology stacks that they've curated that address their customer needs, their market, their segment. So there's around 7% in the region that have actually started realizing value. If you look at it globally, it's around 8%. So very similar to what we found globally. And what do these people do? They do four things differently. One is they've taken the technology stack that is available either through Azure or AWS or other platform providers, and they've tailored it to what is relevant for their context. So that's an important element that they've done. Second is extracting data and making it more usable for their own context. For example, if you look at an oil and gas player, 90% of the data that actually gets generated is not used. It just goes down the drain. So how do you use data in an effective manner for your own operations? Talent. Oops, let me just close that out. Talent. One big challenge in the region is around talent. How do I get the right data scientists, data engineers, and talented individuals? You know, we were talking about these A+ engineers and work in institutions, in incumbent organizations to really make change happen. Which comes to the fourth point is how do you actually restructure your organization to do that? And so we found this recipe does work. For example, a leading bank in the UAE has gone down this path. They've already started realizing significant value and ROI on that AI journey. They have 70 FTEs, or let's say employees, who are part of an AI center of excellence, delivering value for across their entire banking group, corporate, retail, wholesale, and they've also trained a significant portion of their enterprise. That's the closing thought, but I just want to at least give a bit about what we found, at least in terms of our learnings, some of the challenges, as well as some of the bright spots in terms of those value realizers that are in the region realizing value through AI. Thank you.